Welcome back, everybody, to Bleeding Cool's weekly recap of Syfy's Happy. My name is Ray Flook. I'm television beat writer for Bleeding Cool, and we're going to jump right into the second episode, What Smiles Are For. And I guess you could kind of say this episode could maybe have been part of a 90-minute premiere episode, because I think this one works really directly well with the first one. Could understand wanting to split it up, also give a little bit of pacing and setup to it, but I would strongly suggest in repeat viewing, watch the first and second ones together, because I think it tells more of a complete story. Nothing against this episode, but because I really felt like it did pick up from the first one, but it just really, again, not that a lot's going on, but a lot of important things go on. So again, I watched the first two episodes in like a 90-minute block. That's my first suggestion. But we're going to be doing something a little different this week. I want to try and pull some major quotes out from each episode. Kind of give them to you in the beginning. If you've seen the episode, you know what I'm talking about. If you've seen it and don't know, go back. These are all out of context because we like to play around with that just to see if you can remember in what context these quotes were said. So in no particular order, and it was tough picking five. We've got Nick saying, "It's so endearing, yet so, oh, so horrible." We have Blue, "No, no, no, you don't get it. I'm the grape. I'm the goddamn grape." We have Smoothie, who had some excellent lines this week, and a cheap plug, we also have on the site that you're looking at right now, down below, we have a great interview with Patrick Fischler that we did, so definitely please make sure you check that out. But Smoothie has a great line where he goes, "She threw it all away for a flat-chested little girl, and this is what she gets." Ooh, venomous. Andrea, something simple yet heavy. "You owe me," and then Happy. Was again Patton Oswalt not getting nearly enough credit already for the amazing acting he's doing just with his voice when he hits with the "you're more imaginary than I'll ever be." So those are your five quotes out of context. I think as you see as we go along and what context those were in, but let's jump right in. Okay, so we're picking up kind of sort of existentially, metaphysically where we left off last episode, which is essentially big truck hits Nick and hits Happy. So catapulting Nick into the Jerry Springer show, where Jerry Springer is starting to deal with some serious issues about responsibility and ownership for the things he's done, both good and bad. And we're starting to see this play out more and more. Happy's presence, it didn't start this process, but I think it just jump-started what had already been milling around the back of Sax's mind. Stuff he's probably been able to block away, drink away, or drug away a lot easier. Happy, it's a little tougher to do. So we get to see him dealing with that. We then flash back to reality, and we see Sax essentially making his way from the accident scene, because the guy is just like a drugged and jacked up Terminator. He takes the hits and everything, and he keeps going. It reminds me later on in the episode where how many bullets it takes to take Ledic's henchman out. So it gets very interesting from that standpoint. Also interesting that Sax, we're not. I love that this wasn't stretched out. It's not that Sax believes anymore that Happy doesn't exist. He knows right now Happy is either real or some form of real, so he's just going to have him tag along until he can figure out what the hell's going on. We learned that that it's at this point Nick's just right now looking for guns, he's looking for a reliable ride, he's looking for some money, and he's looking to get out of Dodge. To get out of Dodge because the bad guys are after him, but for more than that, as the Jerry Springer stuff's starting to let us see. Okay, jumping ahead, we're going to start moving a little faster on this one. We cut to Haley, and we see Haley still trapped with Very Bad Santa, and we see that Very Bad Santa, this isn't a one act for him. He's a serial kidnapper, and Jesus, I hope not, and I'm assuming serial killer, because Haley strikes up a conversation with the boy who's being captured there too, and that's where we find out, through her conversations with the boy, that the Very Bad Santa is collecting these kids to try in some weird effed up way keep them from ever growing up, to never grow up. And as you can see with the way he's living his life in a very messed up sort of way, it's all reflective of whatever it is that he had to deal with growing up. Now, how this connects into the whole demon thing that Mikey was talking about in the first episode, and is there some kind of connection because we saw how things were when the Santa vest opened up, I don't know yet. It could get kind of interesting. But we cut back to Sax. Sax goes back to his apartment. Waiting for him in his apartment is some of Blue's crew. Blue's Clues. I almost want to say Blue's Clues. Blue's crew. Unfortunately, they're not Blue's crew anymore. They are now working for another outfit that wants Sax out of the way because they know about the password now too, except they're not really even so much interested in the password as they're really interested in Mr. Blue not getting that password. which means this thing is of epic proportions. If you have this many mob families out there and this many third-rate crime organizations out there trying to either get the password or take care of Nick so it doesn't happen, you know, you can only imagine what's going to be happening down the road. But this is Nick we're talking about, and after a friendly conversation and after a friendly discussion, you pretty much know what happened at this point. Yeah, Nick just takes care of all of them in what is a brutal beating. All of them. I've never seen stucco used as a weapon before, so I thought that was very fascinating. So yeah, it's just the level of bloodshed you would expect, not so much from the first episode, but very admirable for a follow-up. We then get to a scene where we get more confrontation between Mr. Blue and Detective McCarthy, Sax's old partner, and we get some interesting revelations there, besides emphasizing the fact that, yes, McCarthy is really indebted to Blue, especially with regards to her mother and her health, but we also get a connection that there's something between McCarthy's mother and Blue, and also Smoothie, as we see in a few. There is some kind of history or connection there that makes that puts that in play. But beyond that, we get confirmation that McCarthy and Sax were an item, and that and a number of other things led to the breakup of Sax's marriage and Sax spiraling downward. But I think there's a lot more going on with that, as we've been seeing in the sneak preview for the third episode, but I don't want to jump ahead. The other thing we find out is it's very, very interesting in that Blue was passed over by the old Don. The old Don did not give Blue the password, instead gave it to Blue's nephew Mikey, which is clearly rubbing Blue the wrong way, to the point where he makes a deal with McCarthy. You get me that password and take care of Nick, you're free for me, your mother's good, you got nothing to worry about. Now, on one hand, you can't blame McCarthy for taking that deal. On the other, I think we've all collectively watched enough television shows and movies and things like that to know that the bad guy mobster usually more often than not doesn't hold up their end of the bargain. So with McCarthy, I understand you buy yourself time, you play out your role, but I really, she seems dramatically more smarter than that to know full well that Blue is just not going to cut her loose. She's a cop on the inside. I don't know too many mobs guys who would end up cutting that kind of connection that they had. So, okay, so we now are at a point where Sax and Happy, they're on the same page, primarily on the same page, because I think we've kind of had Sax leading Happy along by not really playing into the idea, but through silence kind of giving Happy the impression, hey, maybe this is going to work, maybe I'm going to work on him. Sax is really concerned about getting guns, getting drugs, getting car, and getting the hell out. So he ends up stumbling upon some of his old stomping buddies, the aptly named Ledick, who we learn right from the mag is a big poker player and not a big fan of Nick Sax. Who refers to Nick Sax as, I think it's Nick Sax, fluffer of the universe, which is just rough on so many levels. Now, granted, we get the impression that while Ledick may be Ledick, you get the impression Nick Sax has probably screwed him over a couple times on deals and things like that too, but it's Nick Sax, he's our hero, it's Christopher Meloni, so of course we're going to always try to rationalize what he does. But they get into a poker game, and what a surprise, Nick sucks in the beginning and is losing big time, until he realizes something. Happy can see the cards. So in typical Nick Sax fashion, what does he do? He lies to Happy to broker a deal. Sure, we're going to get guns, we're going to get drugs, we're going to get a car, and as soon as we're done, you and me, buddy, we're going to team up. We're going to be the dynamic duo, we're going to be Batman and Robin, we're going to be Kip and Henry from Bosom Buddies, great reference, and we're going to take care of this. Nick has no intentions of that, of course, but Happy buys into it. So they are chugging along, they are rolling along, until Ledick gets a little pissed, stomps on his coke, splashes up into Happy's face, and now we have a jacked up, coked up imaginary friend named Happy who is bouncing off walls that don't even exist. Sax realizes at this point, you know what, maybe I gotta kind of just cut ties and let's just kind of roll with this as we are. So I'm gonna collect my winnings, I'm gonna wish you guys good, you can hand me those guns, and then, yeah, Ledick's not a fan of that for a couple reasons. One, apparently Ledick does not like to lose, and especially to somebody like Nick Sax. And secondly, here's the big surprise that's not a surprise. Blue actually spoke to Ledick and his men to essentially keep Nick Sax there, hold him, keep him alive, but until they get there, until they can scoop him up. Well, you can imagine how well that goes over. So we get, we get another little bit of, like, violence. Essentially, I guess you could call it Nick Sachs being nice enough to let every guy in the room feel what it's like to get shot with their own gun. I guess in a weird, effed up way. That's kind of nice. But yeah, in typical, again, non-stop fashion, Nick pretty much takes care of everybody. The guy I mentioned before earlier, the big dude who takes, I think, 9 bullets, I'm assuming it's either some coke or PCP thing, but wow, I thought he was going to end up having to beat the guy to death with the butt of the gun. So now we've got Nick, only one left alive, helping himself to guns and some monies and stuff. He's grabbing Happy, he's getting the hell out of Dodge, and they realize, well, I should say Nick doesn't realize, since it was his plan all along, but Happy realizes he's been conned and he's been scammed, that they are not going anywhere except the hell out of Dodge. And Happy's, it's not so much the hurt at this point, it's the fear, and we'll see when they have the conversation at the diner why there's the fear. But jump ahead, we're going to cut to Haley's mom and McCarthy. Haley's mom shows up at the police station, which I think gets very, very, very interesting, because we already know now what's been established. And this is where that line comes in with "you owe me." When Andrew just goes to her and says, "Look, you need to help me. You need to connect me with somebody. My daughter's missing." And McCarthy's response of essentially kind of a "who the hell are you, F you, tough" move, not a good move. Because she takes the punch, and I get the impression it may not be the only punch, but yeah, Andrea has a lot of anger and resentment built up. She's kind of owed it. So I'm very curious to see with tonight's episode if that continues, or do we automatically see Andrea in jail, or what. But for McCarthy to just roll up and say, like, "I'll point you to missing persons," no. You have some level of responsibility here, as much as you may not want to claim it. Then we cut back to Nick and Happy, and they are in a diner, and that's when the full realization comes in. And Happy is just trying to... First, Happy begins by just saying to him, like, "Look, you can't let this little girl die." And then he realizes, and he just starts to berate Nick, saying, like, "Look, this little girl thought you were a hero, and you were nothing. You were nothing but imaginary. You're not running from the bad guys. You're running from her, because that's the type of guy that you are." And he even even tries to go for sympathy, and reminds Nick that, look, when Haley's gone, I'm gone. So I have a vested interest in this. You know, it's not just that Happy loves being the imaginary friend to Haley. He loves being an imaginary friend. So in that heartbreak and that combination, we see finally Nick slips back to the Jerry Springer show for one final round before Jerry gets to his deep thoughts. And that's when Nick realizes time's done. He's got to stop. Got to stop running. He's got to go back to being the hero that he was. The guy who was more concerned about justice than going by connecting the dots of law enforcement. And I hope we see more of a sense of that with tonight's episode, when Christmas was Christmas. The sneak preview already gives us a little bit of a sign of that. But yeah, we end the episode with the dynamic duo on the same page. They are going to go and rescue Haley. I mean, what could go wrong considering how well everything's gone up to this point? But yeah, that's our recap, folks. We're going to be changing up as we go along. I hope you like how it went. Don't forget to join me tonight for When Christmas Was Christmas. We are going to be live blogging the 3rd episode of Syfy's Happy. We're going to be pre-gaming at 9 p.m. with some cool extra stuff, but the actual live blog begins at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm going to be on Syfy. Check out bleedingcool.com at 8 p.m. You can find out where the live blog landing site's going to be, so you can keep that open. And you can join me as we live blog. You can let me know what you agree with, what you don't agree with, what your thoughts are, and also about this recap. We have comment section down below. My social media contacts are down below. Don't hesitate. Hit me up. Let me know what you think. I think that would be awesome. I appreciate you guys being a part of this. I will see you live online tonight for live blog, and I will see you back next week for our reminder recap. My name is Ray Flook, television beat writer for Bleeding Cool. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you tonight.